Now, long working hours have been a major cause of heart disease and stroke, leading to death. 745,000 deaths were recorded from stroke and heart disease in 2016, attributed majorly to long working hours. Now, there's been a further increase in deaths by 29% since the year 2000, according to the WHO and ILO. How do we deal with this occupational hazard and its deadly consequences on the back of this grim statistic, which has further been compounded by COVID-19? Professor Amponsateria is the occupational health psychologist and the head of the Department of Organization and Human Resource Management at the University of Ghana Business School. Professor Amponsateria, thank you for your time and good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Kojo. How are you doing?
Indeed. First of all, can you give us perhaps a bit more detail on these findings? How exactly do organizations ensure maximum output while maintaining acceptable working hours?
Well, thank you very much. And let me take the opportunity also to say a very good afternoon to your cherished viewers. I must indicate that, well, in organizations, employers ensure productivity from their employees through the work that they do. And for most organizations, well, it's the man hours that, well, they put in the work that they use in. But more importantly, what we need to understand is the fact that, well, it is not necessarily the hours that you put in work, but it's the effort that you put in work that translate into productivity. So, well, in some organizations, well, they try to push employees to go for a very long haul, which tend to have a toll on them. It is not for nothing that the ILO, in its wisdom, decided that, well, yes, the accepted work hours should be 8 hours in a day. And out of the 8 hours, well, yes, you have mandatory 1 hour break just to get the body to need rest and also to adjust to work and hence get the individual to be 14 hours, 18 hours. Obviously, well, the employees get exhausted. And once employees get exhausted, what it means is that, well, yes, they are not able to give up their best, and hence it is the organization that suffers. So the thinking is that, well, if organizations would want their employees to be much more productive, the ILO and the WHO, in defining occupational health and safety, they indicate that, well, it is the adaptation of man to work and never work to man, which means that, well, the work that the individual is doing should be adapted to the individual's physical and individual's mental or psychological condition. Well, the individual is stressed or the individual is not in very good mental state as a result of the long hours that you are asking the person to work, obviously you're not going to get any good from the individual. So we need to be very careful. And when we're talking about occupational health, you reckon that the ILO and the WHO in a joint definition tend to define occupational health as not merely the absence of disease and infirmity, but the promotion at the highest order, the highest degree, the physical, the mental, and the social well-being of the employee. And this has to do with how the employees manage on the work to give up his best. So, well, that would be my response to your question, Kojo.
Okay, now let's talk about reality. This is a very competitive job market. There's somebody waiting to take your job, whatever you do. And does that not put the worker in a position where they can't really insist on their rights when it comes to work-life balance and the assurance that the tasks that they are given are commensurate with their abilities? Are workers not afraid that if they insist on these rights, they might find themselves out of a job and somebody else replacing them?
Rightly so, Kojo. But that is why for a very long time, yes, there's been a call on the government to have an occupational health and safety policy for the country, which clearly, indeed, gives some protection to the employee. Because, well, yes, the law of the country indicates that, well, the employee cannot be pushed to do anything that is much more injurious to his health. The employee is protected. For instance, asking me to go more than the mandated hours as enshrined or as indicated or stipulated by the ILO in itself is a violation of my right. Necessarily, I should be able to create that room to work those extra hours that you're asking me to work. And I'm protected by law. Even the labor law of the country protects the individual. But I think that, well, this confers the employee, the country, we move a step further to putting in place an occupational health and safety policy. And I'm talking about an integrated occupational health and safety policy that is not just focusing on the safety of employees, but that goes a very long haul to include the mental and the social well-being of employees. Because today, in today's environment, for most of the issues that employees are experiencing on the job, it bothers much more on their mental well-being. Mental health issues among employees is on ascendancy.
Right.
And one of the things that we need to realize that, well, for most of the issues that we're experiencing now, these are not what we call safety hazards. These are what we call health hazards. And when it comes to health hazards are not, their effects are not immediate. Their effects are cumulative and prolonged. And many a times it is when people leave employment that they tend to manifest themselves in strange sicknesses and diseases.
Right.
And that is where we should be looking at.
So in Ghana, according to the law as it stands, if an employee becomes sick, develops heart disease because of adverse working conditions, can they sue their employer?
Well, obviously, if you look at, the Workmen's Compensation Act, it makes provisions, especially so once it's established that, well, that was that particular sickness that you're talking about, well, you contracted it in the line of duty. So the Workmen's Compensation Act really makes such provisions, and that is what we should be looking at. It's more the case that, just as you rightly indicated from the onset, because of the unemployment situation in the country, yes, most people get injured on the job and they even hide it. They don't want to because, well, you'll be considered as accident prone. For that matter, organizations will want to find ways of getting rid of you in the organization. So even when employees are supposed to be reporting some of these things to inform management to put in place remedial measures and to forestall the sanity and the health and safety of employees in the organization, they shy away from it for fear, just as you rightly indicated, of losing their jobs.
Indeed. Right. So what would your advice be? What should be the remedy for anybody who has suffered ill health, in such circumstances?
So, well, what I advise is that, well, interestingly enough, that is well, we have the actuaries now. Now, the actuarial scientists are able to, and have been involved in similar assignments where the actuaries are not looking at just what is stipulated in the Workmen's Compensation Act, but are able to calculate the cost. Because, well, sometimes when people get permanently incapacitated or even temporarily incapacitated, and because of that they are unable to work, we look at the prolonged effect on relations, on family, and they are able to calculate the cost. And some of these things serve as deterrent. I keep telling employers that, well, if you think that, well, accident is expensive, if you think that safety is expensive, try accident. It could be much more expensive. I must also indicate that, well, yes, the ILO emphasizes that, well, there should be the need for a PRIMA, what they call the psychosocial risk management, which is a policy guideline that goes to not protect just the physical safety of employees, but also the psychosocial also. So I'm thinking that, well, it is high time the government goes for an integrated occupational health and safety policy that looks at physical safety issues, that also look at psychological or psychological issues or psychological well-being of the employee, as well as the social well-being of the employee. And in so doing, yes, we can guarantee the health and safety of employees at work. And in so doing also, yes, employees will become much more productive and the employers tend to benefit from it. Let us get the understanding that, well, a healthy employee is a productive employee. Eventually, a healthy employee who works in a healthy organization translates to the wealth of the organization. The wealth of an organization is dependent on its employees. Right. But this is only attained when they are healthy, and we need to give it that attention.
Professor Amponsa Teria, thank you very much for your time with us this afternoon.
Yeah.
Prof. Teria is the occupational health psychologist and head of department of the Organization and Human Resource Management at the University of Ghana Business School.